Hi everyone, it's Pam, and this is part 3 of our series on tips on saving your family history. Today we're going to go through talking about identifying and labeling documents and photographs, and some tips on how to identify photographs if you don't know the dates. Why is this important? It is important because additional information can help tell your family's story. So the next person who inherits the family archives will have a little bit more context and maybe information in terms of the collection that they receive. Additionally, it can help you find genealogical information if you're able to use dates that can really help in your search of discovering different ancestors. It can help you identify people, place, and family events, and as I mentioned, pass along information to future generations. And it goes back to creating a full, comprehensive family history with your collection. So a lot of times we get photographs and maybe they were in a box, or maybe unfortunately the relative has passed away or might not know exactly everyone in the photograph. There are different context clues that you can use to help get you started to identify items in a photograph. So first, and we're going to look at an example here in a second, you can look at the style of buildings in the background. If someone's standing near a building, that may be able to help. A big one's clothing, even shoes, specific shoes someone's wearing, because shoes are indicative of different times. So look at the clothing, do some research on some styles. Now again, this is very in-depth, so it might be too time consuming to do with all the photographs, but if there's a few key ones in your collections you want to try and identify, these are some good tips for you. Whether there's different equipment, maybe someone's holding a cell phone or looking at a computer, that can help narrow it down. Furniture, different furniture styles, other people around, maybe you can identify one person and knew when they were alive, and just again check the background. Maybe if they're standing on a beach, you can see the boardwalk in the background, and the boardwalk was constructed at a certain period of time, and then that can help narrow it down. The example we're going to look at is an aerial view of Oakland, where the University of Pittsburgh is. This photograph is from Historic Pittsburgh, an excellent repository for historic photographs and documents in the city of Pittsburgh. A number of cultural institutions contribute photographs to this collection. So if I got this photograph and I wanted to use some context clues, some things I could do is I would look at some of the big buildings. So the first one is the Cathedral of Learning. You can see it is still under construction. So looking at when the Cathedral of Learning was built, it started construction in 1926 and finished construction in 1936, and it was dedicated in 1937. So already that I had no idea when this photograph was from, but I was able to use those clues and narrow it down. So this photograph's from 1926 to 1937, which already helps me a lot. Now, there's some other things we could look at. Forbes Field, on the left side there, that was built in 1909. The big thing in this one, we were able to narrow it down by looking at the Cathedral of Learning. But we also have Pitt Stadium in the background, and that opened in 1925. So that also reinforces that this photo is after 1925 because Pitt Stadium in the photo is built and fully constructed at that point. So that's just a brief example of how you can use buildings and other research to try and narrow the photo down. This photo was from 1930, as the Cathedral of Learning is finishing up construction. As I mentioned in previous weeks, it is important to label these photographs, but you don't necessarily want to ruin the photographs in any capacity. So I mentioned before how it would be helpful to have a pencil. If you get a photograph, you can write on the bottom of it. You want to use a number 1 pencil. It's the softest pencil, very different than growing up how we had to have number 2 pencils for all of our tests. But my biggest recommendation is to make a bunch of copies of photographs and label those. And this is great to be able to do at a family gathering. You can make copies so everyone's not handling the original photograph. So make copies, a bunch on a piece of paper, hand them around, see who can label what in terms of whether it's an event, a person, a name, any kind of information, a date, any kind of extra information you could get. It's actually a fun family activity to be able to make copies and have everyone tell stories. You also might want to write those stories down as well, but at least this will get you started. You can just write on these copies and keep those copies with the originals. And if you're nervous about writing about on the photographs, please do that. Just keep things to the side. Maybe create a guide or have copies of the photographs and write the information on there. But if you do want to write on the photo, do so on the bottom and back. Don't destroy or write anywhere near the photo. You want to use pencil only. No pens. Pencil's the safest over time. If you can, use a number 1 graphite pencil, and that's a little softer, and write softly. You don't want to write on the back and you're writing to go through the photograph. Next week, we're going to talk about scanning some of those photos in your collection and how that's another form of preservation as well. Thank you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me.